I'm going to tell you about dealing with conflict and contentious situations and weirdness and awkwardness and fear. And this is a thing that if you do it right and you do it over the kind of duration of probably a few years, you will not only be 100% confident in anything that I just described, but I think you'll even get kind of a taste for blood, and you'll even enjoy conflict on some level. I used to think, like, back when I was in therapy, like, I was probably about a year away from living without aggression. From be like, man, next year, if I've beaten my aggression, imagine how that'll feel. Or if I've beaten the anxiety, imagine how that'll feel. And I had such a great therapist. Um, can't even describe the experience I had, because I know a lot of people have, you know, less than perfect people who they're working with. My guy was absolutely tip top, and really sorted my shit. And working with him was the greatest thing ever happened to me. I was When I got out of therapy, I went from probably like the age of 24 till 27 or 28. So I was probably about 28 when he finally said, "I'm kicking your ass to the curb," and then we were done. Um, and at that time, I was scared, because I said to him, "Man, what am I gonna do without you?" And he said, "You have got it all up here now. You're gonna be able to remember it all." But there were some things that I had to develop for myself. And I used the tools that he gave me to develop them, and one of them was what I'm going to share with you right now. All right. You need to develop your own justice system. This is the key to dealing with conflict. The key is not to follow the advice of some Navy SEAL on YouTube who tells you to take Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and like smoke seaweed or something. It's not to learn all the choke points. It's not to go make a bunch of money and get a limousine with bulletproof plates on it and then afford a castle with snipers and say, "Oh, probably good for conflict now." You know, that's ridiculous horseshit, and just ignore anybody who's trying to sell you a course that is advising you to do any of these things. All they are doing is playing into your rage fantasies, which I'm sure you have many. If you're the kind of person who has a lot of aggression, you might even say, like, "Oh, I don't have any aggression. I'm not an angry person." But man, if you go to therapy and you're the kind of person who's scared of conflict, guarantee you that you have a lot of aggression you don't even know about. And part of the problem is that you see other people as threatening, you see other people as ready to fuck you up, but actually, that's you. You're mirroring your inner turmoil onto the world, and you don't even understand that you have those feelings inside until you work with a qualified professional. Talk to a therapist, but I will still, nevertheless. All right, listen. You have to develop your own justice system. Here's what I mean by that. You get into conflicts, but when I say conflict, I don't even mean like an argument. Not even that level. A conflict for somebody who has a lot of aggression or anxiety, or somebody who has, trauma of any kind, you're carrying the the expectation with you at all times that shit is going to go bad. Normal conversations are going to devolve into arguments. Uh, you know, Situations as absolutely embarrassingly light as, you need to call for a cab. Well, I guess these days you would use an app, right? But back in the days when you would have to call for a cab and you would talk to somebody who was going to uh, call up cabs and get them to come to your house. I called a dispatch. All right, you would call the dispatch, and the person would answer the phone, and you'd be shitting yourself, thinking, what if they yell at me? Can you imagine what I'm talking about? Because this level of embarrassment might even mean that you can't admit to yourself. It's so embarrassing to admit that you're afraid to call the who, whatever. She's probably a 17-year-old girl who works at the cab dispatch. What if I call and she yells at me? Your boss comes by your desk and he or she says, can you come to my office in 2 hours? I want to talk to you. They could be perfectly nice. But what are you thinking? You think, shit, what's this about? I was expecting to have a meeting today. And then you go to the meeting after shitting yourself for 2 hours. And what does the boss say? Oh, thanks for coming. I wanted to let you know. We all thought you were doing a great job and we're giving you a raise. And you're shocked that you're not getting fired. You expect things to go badly. You think that it would be a miracle if I call this cab place and they don't yell at me. That's how your psyche is wired. When you call and they don't yell at you, you hang up the phone and you go, man, that was a close one. They could have yelled at me and they didn't. And you reason, man, that 17-year-old girl at the cab dispatch must have been like the nicest person in the world not to yell at me. Man, what a nice girl that was. But you don't put that into the bank of, I guess the cab dispatch doesn't yell at people. You think you narrowly escaped, and the next time you have to call for a cab, it's the same thing over again. All right, the justice system. Get back to the point here. Take the cab situation or the boss situation. Neither of these are even conflicts, but you experience them as conflicts. You are so twisted up inside that you become powerless. You have a plastic smile. You're placating people with a plastic smile. You are submissive. You feel humiliated after having what for the other person is a completely normal conversation under normal circumstances. And then something like this taxi cab app comes out where you don't have to call anymore. And you go, oh, thank God. Now it's so easy. I don't have to talk to anybody. And you reason, well, you know what? I'm just not the kind of person who likes to call. And you tell people that you're an introvert. I'm not saying that introverts don't exist. I really don't know. I'm not making any comment on that. I'm just thinking you might not be. You might be the kind of person who calls. You need your own justice system. All right, so here's what you do. Step 1. You look at the cab situation. You say, they're a business. I'm a private citizen. I've got money. Businesses want money. They offer services. I have what they want. They have what I want. They have advertised their service. They want people to call. Okay? If I call and they yell at me, after we have established that foundation, what does that make them? Well, that makes them assholes. That makes them stupid. Why would you offer a service and then yell at people who call who are willing to pay for your service? Well, you would only do that if you're a stupid asshole. Okay? So maybe we could formulate this as a universal truth. If I call a service that advertises a product and they yell at me, they are in the wrong. Go to your desk and write it in your journal. Make it into an axiom. Write it in the form of like a old philosopher. Like, if one calls an establishment and is yelled at by the proprietor, then, make it very formal. If you need to, write it in long form. I used to write these things in long form. I would describe situations in great detail to myself as an essay. Then come out with the axiom and put that into my constitution. Okay. How many more of these things are there? 40, 50,000 that you can make into your personal constitution, right? How many situations are there? Well, there's not as many as you might think. It takes years, yeah, because what happens is you go into your life, you have situations that you experience as conflicts, which most likely aren't even conflicts in reality. But okay, sometimes they are conflicts. Sometimes you're in arguments. Sometimes somebody threatens you. Sometimes you're intimidated in the street, or you have a bad boss, or you have a bad relationship, or you have a whatever. There are conflicts. Every single time. Don't expect to win the conflict in the moment. You're very emotionally weak. You're the kind of person who, if you're going to win, it'll be random. Don't focus on that and don't be embarrassed. What you need to do is, during the conflict, take the best possible, record it like a video in your head. This is what happened. You're probably going to be paralyzed for whatever reason. I was the kind of person who had so much aggression that I would become paralyzed by the sheer amount of aggression I had. There are other people who come from families where they were never given the tools for conflict because their parents were so overbearing, or because they were subjugated so hard that they feel like they don't have the right to defend themselves. They were never given permission to defend themselves, and they carry that with them for the rest of their lives. There are people who switch to violence too quickly because they have that kind of aggression turned outward on people without thinking. These are all variations on the exact same problem, which is you do not have any kind of regulatory thing built into your psyche that tells you this would be the time that you could defend yourself in this way appropriately. Okay. That's why you got to write it down. Video record it in your own head as accurately as you can. Go home, write it long form as an essay. This is what happened. He wanted this, but I only had this, so he got angry, so I said this. And then come to the conclusion. Who actually is in the right in a cosmological level, not in a self-serving level? Definitely don't write it as like your version of history and then make a constitution that's completely self-serving. You need to make these as objective, universal truths as you possibly can. You need to say that this is, to my knowledge, this is always true. This is a foundational law of the universe that I have divined from analyzing this conflict after the fact. This thing that I sat through totally paralyzed the whole time. Now I've analyzed it. I have come out with the universal truth. I put that axiom into my constitution. After you stack up a few dozen of these, over the course of, I'm going to guess, a couple years at least, you will start to recall them in the moment when you're in a conflict or making a call or in a meeting or in an argument or being threatened. They will occur to you. You might not be able to do anything about it in the beginning, but it'll pop into your mind and you'll think, this is one of those times when this is actually what's right. This is what's true in this situation. Okay. That means that you're starting to, your justice system is inside of you. You might not be able to act on it, but it's in there. You have programmed it into your head. You have now done the work that your family most likely should have done, given you the tools to recognize in real time what's right, what's wrong, who has permission to defend themselves, who needs to shut up, Who needs to listen? Who needs to speak? You have that knowledge now. Okay, now we got to act on it. The fact that this thing is a universal truth means that it's your shield. You just put it out there. You say to them, hey, this is what's true. And you just leave it there. Now it's their turn to react to that. People will react in all kinds of different ways. Some people will try to override you. Some people will they'll try to intimidate you. Some people will look at it and they will say, you're right. Some people will want to discuss more and more. There are a lot of irrational people out there, but you just became a rational person. You're not paralyzed if you can just simply say what's true. Just insinuate it into the conversation somehow. Say it weakly. Say it quietly. Make sure that somebody at some point in the conversation sees that this is what I believe is true. Okay, this is your shield. Now, what they do in return is their responsibility. Okay, so if they intimidate you then, after you've said that, they are in the wrong. And you can be absolutely sure then that they are the asshole, not you. Okay? You're being treated unjustly. You know that now because you've taken the time over a long period of time to put together what is actually true in this situation. Everybody else you know is making it up on the spot. Even the people who were handed it to them when they were kids by, they had great parents who handed it to them, and it's in their bones or whatever. It may be completely unanalyzed for them. They might not even know why they know what they know. You actually know why you know. It's like a superpower, okay? You don't even have to be tough about it. You just have to say it. You just have to make sure that it's out there. How the world reacts to that is their responsibility. Now, they might still try to beat the shit out of you. But you don't have to say when you get home, was I right? Was I the asshole? You know for a fact that they were the asshole. And so if you would be more willing in that case to ask somebody for support, or if you're the kind of person who is like me and you were waiting for the signal, like, if you feel really aggressive about this would be a legitimate time to use the aggression. Now you're confident. Well, great. Now I know that I'm in the right. I will defend myself accordingly. Merely by knowing what is right and having that recallable in real time. It takes a long time for it to finally come to your mind in the moment, but when it does, it feels like a superpower. And the more of these situations you rack up, the easier it gets, the faster the recall is. At first, you think of it right after the argument ended. You go, you know what? Damn it, that was axiom number 24 or whatever. But pretty soon, they start being instant. Situation arises, you can put it right down, even before it starts. You know where it's going. This is axiom number 18. You don't need to be an asshole. You just need to say the truth. And it's a shield, okay? Now, the better you get at this, the more confident you get. The more iterations of this you experience, the stronger your psyche gets. And after a couple years of practicing this technique and having your justice system recallable instantly in the moment, you don't even need to write these situations anymore. You don't actually need to write all 50,000 variations. There's a certain logic to creating these axioms which your brain learns, and you start to just cross-reference these things, and you can sort of divine what is reasonable in a situation very quickly. And people might not agree at first, but as the conversation evolves, people will sort of come to that conclusion and they'll say, how did you come to that so quickly? Or, you're a very fair person. Well, I worked very hard to become such a fair person. People will say, you're a cool head. You've never been called that before in your life. People at work will say, you seem like such a calm, cool, collected person. And you think, me? I've been shitting myself since as long as I can remember. And then suddenly you realize, but I'm not anymore. Because you know what's right. This is the power of creating a belief system. I have to stress that when you create the belief system, it has to be something which is as close to being actually universally true as possible. You cannot stack the deck and say that things are true that aren't true. You need to really search far and wide to check that the things that go into your constitution are the best approximation of reality as you can possibly make them, because otherwise they will not work and you're just attempting to manipulate people. But if you can get them to be true enough that the majority of the time people see the truth in them, you will become a very strong, confident person quicker than you think. After you put in that initial couple years of work, you will be formidable. And then it gets fun. It gets really fun. And there was another level of this that happened to me. After it got fun, I started to look for conflicts. Because I recognized that through these arguments, through these, through any of these sorts of contentious situations, I was growing as a person through this problem solving. And it isn't to say that I want to go fight people. I certainly am not a fan of the manosphere on the internet or any of the alpha male stuff, because anybody who's trying to make you into a Navy SEAL in order to deal with calling for a cab or this level of stuff is playing on your anxiety and your rage fantasies. You're not going to have anxiety surrounding conflicts if you know what is right, and you're able to recall these things in real time. You will be able to more quickly diffuse things through purely logic, conversation, communication, and that opens the whole door for listening to them, their perspective, which was also, you might have thought that that's what you were doing before, when you were too weak to stand up for yourself. All you were doing before was placating them. You were trying as hard as you could to appease them by being submissive and twisting yourself up inside very unnaturally in order to get through these conversations. Then going away and saying, I guess I'm just an introvert. I can't have these, conflict, even basic conversations just twist me into a knot and it takes me days to decompress and all that kind of stuff. That's going to be a thing of the past. And communication will be very, very easy for you. Anyway, that is the philosophy as basically as I can say it. And this can be round one. If anybody has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. And, peace out, guys.